I'm Mark Armette, a doubles luge athlete for the United States. Vancouver will be my 5th Olympic Games. My doubles teammate, Brian Martin, and I won a silver medal in the 2002 Games and a bronze in 1998. I'm going to talk about the sled, the start, and how we steer the sled going down the track at 90 miles an hour. Our custom-built sled is a fiberglass pod with 2 handles. The 2 runners on the bottom have flexible, curved sections that we use to steer. Once we're seated on the sled, we're ready for the start, a crucial part of the race. We begin by rocking back and forth a couple of times to synchronize our movements. As we reach the handles our 3rd time forward, we pause, putting us in the block position. This prepares us for our final thrust backwards. From the block, we push back as hard as we can, fully extending our bodies, like loading a spring. This is called the compression phase. And once we hit the back point, we transition into the pull phase. Here, we try to get out of the compression as fast as we can, exploding out of the handles, pulling with our shoulders and upper back. To ensure that we're pulling as one, Brian clutches on the straps tied around my fingers and arms. In order to get the most power and momentum, our hands and arms must leave the handle at straight angles. Once we're on the track, we use our gloves to paddle through the first 10 to 15 feet of the track. Our gloves have spikes taped onto some of the fingers for traction. As the top man, I try to stay as flat and aerodynamic as possible. The bottom driver acts like a suspension, trying to keep the ride smooth going in and out of the curves. The steel runners on the sled bottom have a slight arc, so as we speed along, only about 4 or 5 inches of steel touch the ice at any given time. We call these riding surfaces the balance points. Because I see where we're going, I control most of the steering. To initiate a turn, I turn my head in the direction of the curve. Brian, as the back driver, can steer harder because he is in contact with the sled, and he takes his cues from me. For a left-hand turn, I turn my head in the direction of the curve. Then, Brian starts to steer by pushing down with his left shoulder, and I push down with my right foot. This causes the sled to twist, the runners flex, and the balance points shift, making the sled turn. We call this hook steering. The moments before each turn are critical. There's a theoretical perfect line for each curve. When the curve pulls the sled up above this line, I need to drive down to meet this line. And when the curve wants to pull the sled down below this line, then I need to drive up in order to meet this line. Your finish time depends on making the least amount of mistakes, allowing gravity to do its work.
And Tony for today's competition, as well as all the other athletes. Nice job for everyone. Great.